With Colston Loveland and Luther Burden missing pretty much all of this offseason practice time, it goes to show just how important it is to still have Cole Kmet and D.J. Moore on the Chicago Bears.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. On the show today, we're going to look at the continued absences of Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, missing mandatory minicamp, voluntary OTAs, and hopefully ready for training camp, but easier said than done there. So we'll find out what they've been missing and why that highlights the importance of not trading away Cole Kmet and D.J. Moore just yet. We'll talk about what the injury timeline might look like and why I still have more questions about when Colston Loveland will be back, even if it seems like Luther Burden is on a little bit of a better track there. But we'll get an injury update on what Loveland has been able to do while not being able to fully practice. And then we'll also check in on Caleb Williams' development and him going the extra mile to get even more practice time in that he wasn't required to do and wasn't necessarily even expected to do for this team. But we've reached essentially the end of the early summer off-season workouts right before training camp. Training camp will be the next practice situation the Bears are in. But we've had rookie minicamp, voluntary OTAs, then mandatory minicamp, and one more week of like rookie OTA practices this week. And Luther Burden hasn't been able to participate in much of any of it. He was in the beginning of rookie minicamp, then started dealing with some soft tissue issues, and hasn't really been able to practice since then. And we knew Colston Loveland was coming in with an injury, so it hasn't been a surprise that he hasn't been out there. But Burden's the one who, if it was a game day situation, could he potentially try and play through whatever soft tissue issues? I mean, we don't know the extent, but it's more of a minor thing than a major thing, but it's the offseason, so you don't want to push it. You don't want a guy to play through injuries. There's no reason to risk further injuries because it is just offseason practice. And yet, when you're a rookie coming into the NFL for the first time and obviously a new offense and new teammates, there's a lot of important stuff that you're missing right here. And so I want to hear Bears head coach Ben Johnson talking about what someone like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland are missing by being out. And I want you to pay particular attention to Ben Johnson's tone here when talking more specifically about Luther Burden, because I think with Colston Loveland, that injury was known and they acknowledged it and there's nothing they can do about it. That's just something that they've had to accept. But he seems a little bit less accepting and patient here when he's talking about what Luther Burden is missing by not being out there.
What does he miss in being unable to be out?
Yeah, no, he misses a lot. I mean, anytime you're not out there, if you're in the training room when the rest of the guys are practicing, you're losing valuable time with your coaches, valuable reps with your teammates, the ability to build the trust that we're talking about. It's not just the coaching staff having trust in you doing the right thing over and over, but it's also your teammates. They got to be out there. They got to see you do it. They got to know that the guy right left of them, that they're going to do the right things and they're going to make the plays when called upon. So, I think it's for everybody, and it's a shame that he got dinged up and missed all that time, because for a young player, it's really where you get the most reps and you can get better in a hurry that way. So that's really for every player on this team.
So I don't want to speculate too recklessly there and try and read too much into Ben Johnson's tone and delivery there, but he sounds like a coach who's maybe a little frustrated with Luther Burden's absence. I mean, I don't know, is that too strong of a read on the language and tone, that there's just like a little bit more of a calling out kind of energy there. And of course, like if a player's hurt, he's hurt, but maybe there's a feeling like, hey, could you push through it a little bit more or try a little harder? I don't know. I just feels like there's a little something more there. And then of course, like beyond just the tone, the actual substance, like yes, Luther Burden and Colston Loveland are missing really important stuff right now. Like this is the time of year where players develop and get better more at an individual standpoint. This is where the individual player makes a lot of progress because they're getting that more like specific instruction to their own abilities. It's less about, installing a game plan or even a playbook in some regards. So it's more about like technique and foundational functional stuff that kind of builds your own skill set up as an individual player, in addition to building chemistry with your quarterback and timing with your quarterback and learning the playbook and learning the plays and communicating with your teammates and learning the muscle memory of blocking next to these guys and all your different responsibilities and stuff. There's also just like the individual development aspect. And we experienced this last year with Karan Amagaji when he missed a bunch of time and then by the time, missed most of the offseason and then all of training camp. And then by the time he gets to playing in the regular season, he just looks way over his head because he just missed so much time. Like that's what you start to risk with Luther Burden and Colston Loveland being out. And so if those guys are going to start a little bit slower for their rookie seasons because they're missing off-season time, it sure makes it that much more important that you still have Cole Kmet and D.J. Moore. It's why, after the draft when the Bears drafted wide receiver and tight end, everybody wanted to quickly say, oh no, are the Bears going to trade Kmet? Are the Bears going to trade D.J. Moore? It's like, no, of course not. Because these are rookies. Like they're coming in year one. You didn't draft them for what they're going to do this season. You're drafting them for the next 5 to 10 plus years. And so you need Cole Kmet and DJ Moore for this season at a very minimum. And that would be even if Loveland and Luther Burden were healthy. Like even if they were healthy, you'd still want veterans there that you can count on and rely on and aren't leaning on rookies and the ups and downs of their first year to lead to your offensive success. Like you want to have both these veterans in there anyway. And then you add in that those players are injured and imagine how screwed the Bears would be had they traded Cole Kmet right after drafting Colston Loveland or traded DJ Moore right after drafting Luther Burden. For the record, they can't afford to trade DJ Moore on his current contract. The money in the salary cap hit is too significant to really work out the financials. It would cost them more to trade him than it does to keep him. So that was never a realistic option. But the point being, like, you need to have multiple good players at these positions. And it's not like an overabundance where they can't find a way to use them all. Like this is really important to have all of these guys together for at least this year. And we'll talk about, in the future, what that looks like for Kmet and Moore in 2026 and 2027 and beyond. But for now, you need these guys here. And also to say, like, on the same point of it's about the next 5 to 10 years with Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, like if they have slow rookie seasons, it's not the end of the world here. You didn't draft them just to come in year one and be great rookies. You drafted them to be great career players for the Chicago Bears. So hopefully we can have an appropriate amount of patience and maybe lower expectations a little bit for what these rookies are going to do because of the value of the veterans ahead of them and also the slower start because of injury. I'm particularly concerned about Colston Loveland because every update we get about his injury isn't bad news. It just doesn't give me a lot more confidence in the timeline just yet. So we'll hear from Loveland about what his recovery is looking like, what his timetable looks like, and what he has been able to do in the meantime while still recovering from those injuries. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans in the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites because the Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Apple and Outlook and Google and more, all making it simple to track appointments, practices, and dinners and reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. Perhaps seeing your whole week more clearly on a 15-inch HD screen can help you stay focused and a little bit less overwhelmed. It can eliminate the I didn't know excuse from your family's routine, and you can make sure that plans don't get missed because they're not buried in some digital calendar somewhere or not written down at all. With the Skylight Calendar, it's always there, visible, bright, and easily organized. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's SKYLIGHTCAL, skylightcal.com/NFL. The Bears haven't had Loveland or Luther Burden for this portion of the offseason program. Ben Johnson was very confident that Luther Burden will be good to go by training camp. No real concerns there. We don't know exactly what sort of soft tissue problem Burden's dealing with, but when you think about a classic hamstring or quad or calf or whatever, just sort of a little tweak type of thing, that's what I imagine we're working with here, where it's just enough that you don't want to push it and risk re-injury, but not enough that he's not going to be ready for training camp. Like, he got, 6 weeks before training camp starts? Like, this is a not that serious of an injury that he can recover from and be good to go by training camp. Ben Johnson was pretty clear on that. But when Ben Johnson was asked about Colston Loveland and will he be ready for training camp, very different answer, very different tone. Answer was not no. The tone was not a tone of concern, but the answer was, I don't know yet. The answer was, we're still figuring that out. The answer was, haven't been looking that far ahead. We're going to meet before everyone goes home and try and get an update on a timetable then, and then we'll set our expectations for what training camp is going to be. So the answer was not no, but the answer was not yes. And it wasn't a confident, like, we expect things to still be going as planned. It was more just like, we'll see. We'll figure it out. And that to me was not reassuring or encouraging. But I will say, we got to hear from Colston Loveland soon after that. And Loveland himself had a little bit more, I guess, positivity behind it, but it really wasn't definitive enough. And I'm still left feeling like no one is doing a lot to say, hey, everything is fully on pace and everything is going to be fine. It's mostly just we're sticking to the plan. But I did think Loveland gave us a little bit more detail on what he is and isn't able to do. And I think there's two key factors here for him. So we'll hear him kind of go through both here. One is at the beginning, he talks about will he be ready for training camp? And then they kind of get into some different details of what he is and isn't able to do physically now in the meantime as he ramps up to being back in full.
Do you think you'll be ready to go, or you'll be good to go by the start of training camp?
It's the plan, man. Just working every day to get there.
What's the last hurdle, or is there a last hurdle to being 100%?
Yeah, really just getting the strength back and mobility. Just continuing each day to work. And when I'm there, I'll be there and I'll be out there ready. So.
What are you able to do right now, football activity-wise?
Like I said, just working, catching balls, doing what I can, just doing whatever I'm allowed to do. Communicating with the PT, coaches, and doing what I can. But just
How much like routes and catching are you doing right now? Is that full go?
Yeah, I run routes, catch balls. Yep.
Do they let you throw the ball back or not?
Yeah, I'm actually became ambidextrous kind of, so I get to use both hands.
Can you lift, or is that off limits?
Yeah, I've been lifting. Yep, yes, sir.
So let's start with the timetable aspect here, right? Will you be ready for training camp? That's the plan, or it's the plan. Like that's the plan is not new and is not any more reassurance than we came in with. We knew that he had the surgery in January. We knew at the time of the surgery in January, it was about a 6-month recovery timetable. And so January, 6 months would be July, which is when training camp starts. So in theory, the plan has always been he'll be ready to start a training camp. But I can't help but think in other examples in your life, it's hey, will you be ready? Will you be ready to leave in 5 minutes? You ask your spouse or your kids or whatever, hey, you ready to go in 5 minutes? That's the plan. Does the phrase "that's the plan" mean yes, or does "that's the plan" mean I sure hope so? I'll try. I'll do my best, but no guarantees. That's kind of what it feels like with Colston Loveland here, where there's a different way for him or Ben Johnson to have answered that question. I understand it's a medical thing, and they probably can't sit here today and say for sure yes or no. You never know exactly how a body's going to recover, and there's still 6 more weeks of building up that strength like you talked about and the mobility and all that stuff. That yes, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, we should have a definitive answer today. But there's a way to answer that question and say, listen, everything's on track for the beginning of training camp. That's been the plan all along, and my recovery has been going at the pace we want it to. And if everything continues the way it has been, then I should be ready to go for training camp like we've been planning. Like, that's a way to say it in a more confident way, in a more like to convey like, hey, don't worry. And everything we've heard has been kind of like, well, maybe we'll see. And it's just, it scares you a little bit that there's still an open door here for training camp to start and Colston Loveland to not be ready to participate in training camp. Because as much as Ben Johnson talked about all the different things Luther Burden was missing by not being able to participate in minicamp and OTAs, like training camp is even more important. Like, there's a reason veterans are more likely to skip some of the other offseason stuff, but they show up for training camp. Like, training camp is like, let's get to work. This is when the real business starts. The pads go on. You really install like the full playbook and not just some of the foundational concepts. You start to do game planning type of activities and situational moments. Like, training camp is the critical time for player and team development for these guys to come together. And the more training camp time you miss, the farther behind you're going to be to start the regular season. Like, I think generally Luther Burden, if he's good to go by the start of training camp and then stays healthy through the rest of training camp, I don't know that he's going to have some like huge major setbacks. I don't think he's going to be super far behind. You can catch up in training camp a little bit more easily what you missed in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. But if you miss significant portions of training camp, there's not a lot of opportunities to catch up there. Because once you get in the regular season, your game plan and practice is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and walk through, right? Like, all you're focused on is the next game. It's not about your individual development, your personal development. You're just trying to catch up on the fly. And again, this is what happened with Karan Amagaji last year. Misses all of training camp and all the preseason, and no wonder he looked so bad when he was thrown out onto the field in the middle of the season. I certainly don't expect that Colston Loveland will miss all of training camp, but when they drafted Amagaji last year, they said, yes, we know he's injured, but they expected him to be ready for training camp. Like, it was a very similar messaging of like, we know he's injured, we're comfortable with it, our doctors checked it out, and he should be ready to go for training camp. And for Loveland, it's been the same language. And so, having just been burned by this with Amagaji, I'm like trying to remind everybody, like, hey, just because they think he'll be ready for the start of training camp, and the plan is that he'll be ready to start for training camp, we don't know that for sure. And you know what? If he misses 3 days of training camp practice, maybe not that big of a deal. But if he misses 3 weeks of training camp practice, well, all of a sudden now we're getting into some real trouble territory, just in terms of starting slow and being behind and having to do a lot of catch up, and then not having all that productive of a rookie season as a result, even as a number 10 overall pick in the draft. Like, the more time Colston Loveland misses, the less we're going to see from him this season, the less talent, the less spectacular, the less full of his potential will we be able to see on the field right away. And the more likely somebody like Tyler Warren outproduces him in his first year. And that's, disappointing, but that's okay. Like, it's at least explainable and something that we can foresee on the front end, as opposed to like getting in the season and wondering, why isn't this guy coming along more fast? It's like, well, maybe because he missed all that time due to injury in the lead up to the year. So that's why I keep wanting to point out and keep checking in on Loveland's timetable. Like, at least he's able to catch passes and run routes. Like, it's not like he's recovering from a leg injury or something where he can't run, or like a hand injury where he can't catch. Like, it's a shoulder. Like, there's some limitations there, but he's getting back to it, and he's not doing nothing, right? He is getting something out of it. So hopefully he's the kind of player who will, hopefully he's healthy by the start of training camp. And if not, hopefully he can be the kind of player that catches up very quickly, doesn't miss much time at all. And this is all in the past, and no problem, no worries. It's just, we've had enough prominent recent examples of rookie Bears players dealing with injuries that we're pretty scarred and have some PTSD here. We're looking around and trying to prevent that kind of shock and disappointment from coming in the near future. So that's my moment of not panic. We're not panicking, but just caution. Can we say moment of caution on Colston Loveland especially, but a little bit of Luther Burden there. I realize it's not, fun and exciting the way Caleb Williams is fun and exciting. Caleb Williams is putting in the work, and that's a much more positive story coming out of Bears OTAs, with him showing up for some extra practices that he wasn't required to and didn't need to. So we'll hear from Ben Johnson about the opportunities Caleb Williams is getting and the progress he's making at these offseason practices next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. We're in the midst of an exciting NBA Finals, and every game delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action with FanDuel. Same thing is true for the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup Final. Also very exciting. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game if it's before the opening tip or live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Even if you just want to bet ahead on the upcoming football season. There's a betting line for Bears-Vikings in Week 1, Bears win total, playoff odds, Ben Johnson as Coach of the Year, and so much more. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets in addition to the winnings from your $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. So while Luther Burden and Colston Loveland haven't been able to be out there, Caleb Williams has been out there and has now been out there extra because he's been to all the voluntary OTAs and then, of course, mandatory minicamp. He and everybody else were there. But now this last week of practices here in the middle of June, or I guess early June, whatever, is a few more OTAs that are designed for rookies, essentially, to get a little bit more time to kind of catch up from the veterans. But it doesn't mean it's rookies only. Like rookie minicamp, which is right after the draft, is, I guess it's not literally rookies only because it's rookies and tryout players only, but you don't have veteran players participating, like players under contract on your team that are veterans that have been around for a while, participating in the actual rookie minicamp after the draft. But this OTA this week is also a sort of a form of a quote unquote rookie minicamp, but really it's more like OTAs practices. But in this OTAs practice, other players are allowed to attend, but they don't have to. And so Caleb Williams chose to come back for more practices that he wasn't required to be at. And this is different than like, yes, you're not required to attend the voluntary OTAs earlier this offseason either, but like this is a little bit extra above and beyond because you don't have other veteran players on a lot of other veteran players on the roster doing this. Like Rome Odunze came as well, but like you don't have Grady Jarrett, DJ Moore, like the actual like established players on the roster aren't coming to this and aren't expected to come to this and aren't being asked to come to this. And I don't believe Caleb Williams was asked to be at this or quote unquote expected to, but it's been a welcome sight for Ben Johnson to see Caleb Williams out there seeking just more opportunities. Caleb wants to get better, wants to win, and wants to take advantage of every possible opportunity he gets to practice with not only the coaching staff, but also a number of his young teammates. Even if some of those young teammates aren't going to be major parts of the roster this season, he can still get extra time in, with some of the backup running back like Kyle Manungai or some of the wide receivers a little bit farther down the depth chart because Luther Bird and Colston Loveland aren't able to go there. Chemistry with some of the offensive linemen as well, and just being able to work his own butt off. So here's how Ben Johnson described what brought Caleb back for these practices and what they've been trying to throw at Caleb so far and how well he's handled it.
What does it tell you about Caleb that he's here and leading those guys out there?
Yeah, I think he's committed to learning the offense. We're not where we need to be yet as a team, and he understands that. And any chance he gets to get a few more full speed reps, it sounds like he wants them.
Ben, how would you describe the progress that you personally made in terms of getting to know Caleb's strengths, getting to know Caleb as a player, as you work to build the offense around him?
Yeah, we've loaded him up. We've tried a number of different things. Long play calls, multiple plays at the line. We've dabbled here, tempo. We've dabbled here, there, and everywhere really throughout the springtime. And some comes a little bit more natural than others for him. But I do think we've seen him get better in really all facets. And so we'll have to sit down as a staff before we leave and when we come back just to make sure we're honed in on what direction we want to go all together. But I feel pretty confident the things that he's put on tape that we can go ahead and get after a little bit.
Is there anything specifically stood out or like, whoa, that really impresses me with Caleb?
There's always a throw or two every single day. The movement stuff outside of the pocket, it's what we thought coming into town here was the ability to create. And I don't, sometimes you get wrapped up when you're in the multiple play call game. being in a perfect play all the time for the perfect coverage, that look of the defense, and really with him, it doesn't matter so much what the play call is. If it's the perfect play versus the first, then it's great, it's there. And if it's not, then he's able to find a way to make it work. And so I think there's a little bit of that's going on right now and figuring that out. But he's done a great job so far digesting. He's working hard, and there's still some hiccups out there when you're watching it, some turnovers or needs to play one more time, and that's part of the growing process.
All of this to me just reinforces a lot of the things that we knew about Caleb Williams, but sometimes gets, misconstrued or misinterpreted or, misconceptualized, I don't know the verb there, about Caleb Williams a lot of times, outside national media, preconceived notions about him not working hard or him not putting in the effort or him being a diva or him, certainly, the ESPN stuff about him not wanting to be a Chicago Bear in the pre-draft process. But this is as clear a sign as we've seen of he wants to be here. He is dedicated and working hard and taking advantage of absolutely every opportunity that is presented to him in order to be the best he can be. It reinforces when we heard from say the players want to be coached harder. They want coaching. All they want is more pushing, more growth, more possibility for better from this team. And this is how you get it. And I think it sets a tone, it sets a culture of being all in and hard work and showing that you are going above and beyond so that his teammates will know, well, that guy's putting the work. So, when Caleb makes a mistake, they go, well, but he's been putting in the work and he's there every day. He's there extra days. He's there late. He's there early. There's a respect and a trust factor that builds with that. Not that he didn't, already have some of that with his teammates, but just every little thing kind of adds to that idea of what that leadership looks like and what that foundation is based on with this hard work and this above and beyond effort. It's the same kind of mentality that leads Gervon Dexter to organize workouts with his teammates in Florida and brought in a bunch of defensive linemen down there. Right when they see Caleb going above and beyond to lead with his teammates, then other leaders on the team step up and do their own efforts here. And I imagine between now and training camp, there'll be some social media clip of Caleb throwing to his receivers somewhere. I mean, we saw some of that even last season as a rookie. Caleb got the receivers together and was throwing to them. And so I'm sure we're going to see even more of that from him and other players. And there's always aspects of that don't even get reported, that we don't find out about, but that players got together and did workouts and all sorts of stuff. So it really is checking all of the positive boxes that you want to see. All well, I also appreciate Ben Johnson in there saying, we're not where we need to be yet. We can simultaneously be very glad and praise the hard work and the effort and all this stuff, with also they're doing a good job of not getting carried away of this hype train, right? Of it seems in off seasons of the past, in recent years, it's last year all we were talking about was top 5 defense. The Bears want to be a top 5 defense, and the offense is taking these big steps forward with Shane Waldron, right? And it was this big hype train about how good the Bears were going to be that season and on their way to the playoffs and stuff. And I think Ben Johnson's done a really good job of tampering some of that and just kind of saying, hey, we're throwing a lot at them and we're seeing where sticks. We're figuring it out, but they're doing a good job. It's not where we need to be yet, so we got to keep working at it, but we're making progress. There's a sort of a slow and steady approach of hey, we're not getting too ahead of ourselves here, but we like what we've seen. And that feels like a really healthy middle ground between way too much hype and everything's getting blown out of proportion versus is there problems brewing? It's no, right on track where we need to be there. And so I think we can all be encouraged going into the summer break that the Bears have accomplished most of what they needed to accomplish this time of year. And that's pretty much all we can ask from off-season workouts and practices that otherwise don't have a lot of value for us on the outside of the organization. But as the Bears offense continues to develop, as we get more updates on Caleb Williams, as we go through this 6-month break between now and training camp, we'll bring you all of your Bears updates right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, although we're down about 3 days a week right now until we get closer to Bears training camp. We'll ramp back up to 5 days a week. But if you're looking for a second listen or even a first listen on the rare days we don't have a Locked On Bears podcast, you can always find more football talk on Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting, or you can listen to any of other Locked On podcasts for your other favorite teams in the NBA, NHL, MLB, and college sports. There's plenty of other Locked On podcasts to go check out. In the meantime, just make sure you're coming back on Monday for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity for you to bear down.